Hey everyone, I'm Mariana and I am back with another Best of the Decade list. As you can tell from the title, today I am talking about my favorite sci-fi films of the 2010s, which I am very excited about. I love science fiction, as most of you already know. It is one of my favorite genres, if not the favorite, when done right, and the 2010s have been very good to us sci-fi fans, so this list was a lot of fun for me to figure out. A little bit frustrating because I ended up having to leave some great movies off it, but mostly a lot of fun. And it gave me an excuse to rewatch some of my favorites that I haven't seen in a while. Side note, I know some people are going to end up asking, so I'm just confirming this right now. Yes, these are Slytherin Christmas stockings. Of course they're Slytherin. If you missed my previous Best of the Decade video, which was my top 10 sequels of the 2010s, I will of course leave that link for you in the info box below, along with links to any of the reviews that I mentioned here today. All right, let's get into this. Starting things off at number 10 is Ex Machina. I am always attracted to films that deal with artificial intelligence, and this one is definitely one of the best ones like that out there. I've seen Ex Machina 4 or 5 times at this point, and what's interesting is that I experienced the film from a different perspective every time I watched it. Initially, we all follow Caleb and see the film through his eyes as he is performing this modified Turing test on Ava and trying to figure out how advanced her AI is. On my repeat viewings, though, I have definitely experienced this film through the eyes of Nathan, Oscar Isaac's character, and Ava herself. It changes every time you watch it because you try to see it from a different perspective, and you're no longer new to the story. You're observing it from different angles, which is really cool. This film is the case of a very familiar concept done in a really cool way that feels fresh and interesting, and I love that this is an indie sci-fi film with a $15 million budget, which is very low for a sci-fi film, and yet it looks so good and it's so well put together and it's so memorable. The aesthetic is very minimal and yet very interesting. It just works. Really impressive film, very interesting story, really cool dance scene involved. Let's just not forget about that, and this is a lot of fun to rewatch. Next up, at number 9, I have the severely underrated Predestination. This film does not get the love and attention that it deserves. Predestination is a treat for people who enjoy pondering time travel paradoxes. I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but it's safe to say this movie will have you drawing or Googling timeline charts, because here a temporal agency is trying to stop a bomber through the means of time travel. There is a lot more to this story, but that is something I think you should discover on your own. I, once again, would not want to ruin this for you. There are so many twists and turns to it, and because of that, I was a little bit worried that this would not work on a rewatch, but it absolutely does. You can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the details. You are not worried about putting the story together on rewatches. First time you watch it, it kind of hurts your head a little bit, but I promise it's worth it, and it hurts your head in the best way possible. Time travel sci-fi is generally difficult to do right, and Predestination, in my opinion, nails it. Also, let's not forget the amazing, amazing performances by Sarah Snook and Ethan Hawke. I am just so sad that they did not get recognized for this, because they certainly deserved a lot more recognition than they got. This is one of the most underrated films of the decade, in my opinion, and if you haven't seen it, please do yourself a favor, and then we can discuss it in the comments below, because there's a lot to talk about here. At number 8, I have Looper, a film where time travel has not only been invented, but has actually already been outlawed. Can you tell I'm a fan of time travel? I love the premise of this. In order to kill someone, you have to send them into the past because at the present day timeline of this film, it's become nearly impossible to dispose of a body. So people who kill those involuntary time travelers are called loopers, and their final victim is always a future version of themselves. Naturally, our protagonist is faced with his future self, fails to kill said future self, and then all kinds of craziness ensues. Aside from this amazing premise, this is time travel done right. It's time travel that makes sense, and I really appreciate that. But also, on top of that, this is a very entertaining, futuristic action thriller. So there are a bunch of genres coming together here, and it works in all of these genres. I really do think this is the best Rian Johnson film out there. And let's not forget, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is playing a young Bruce Willis here, which sounds a little bit like a strange casting choice, but he is so convincing. Those two play off each other so well, and you completely believe that this is the same person. Love this movie. For number 7, I'm going with the most fun film on this list. In fact, it was so much fun that it was actually nominated for some Golden Globes in the musical or comedy categories. I'm, of course, talking about The Martian. This is one of those rare occasions where I actually enjoyed the movie more than the book, even though there are some things I wish they didn't cut out. This is based on the novel by Andy Weir, and it revolves around a charismatic astronaut who accidentally gets left behind on Mars and has to somehow figure out how to survive and how to potentially get back home. First of all, Matt Damon as Mark Watney is the most perfect casting. If I ever were to do a list of the best casting choices in films, he would definitely be on this because he fits the personality and the humor so well. I could not imagine anyone else playing this role. It's a really funny and a really entertaining film. It has some heart-pounding moments where you're really concerned, but it is incredibly entertaining. So I guess I kind of understand why it got nominated as a comedy. It's definitely not primarily a comedy, but you know, as far as sci-fi goes, this definitely goes towards the comedy section. Also, Mars looks really good here. It's a very entertaining film in all aspects, from the visual standpoint, from the humor, from the character standpoint. Just if you somehow haven't seen The Martian, you should really check it out. You'll have a lot of fun with it. I don't really know what else to say. It's not a very deep sci-fi film, but it is really good. That's it. For number 6, I am going from the most fun film on this list to the darkest film on this list, and I'm talking about Snowpiercer. If this year's Parasite is the only Bong Joon-ho film that you've seen and you really liked it, please direct your attention towards Chris Evans riding a post-apocalyptic train. Basically, the survivors of the Earth's second ice age are all confined to this train that just keeps circling the globe, and the train becomes this miniature version of our society with all of its problems and quirks, except of course, this confined situation leads to things escalating and getting quite extreme. The themes of class divide are all over this. Bong Joon-ho was actually writing Parasite as he was finishing his work on Snowpiercer, and you can absolutely tell. You have all these different sections of the train that are a very memorable and interesting visual representation of different layers of society. You have this wintry setting, which is pretty unusual for post-apocalyptic sci-fi, which I, of course, love. You will never look at Chris Evans the same way again, I promise you that, and generally the cast overall is amazing, but Chris Evans, guys, wow. And plus, there's a really fun, maybe. There's a Happy New Year moment in this film, which obviously is very appropriate for this season. Coming in at number 5 is my controversial pick of this video, Interstellar. I love this movie. Interstellar is a great sci-fi film. Don't at me. You have the Earth slowly becoming uninhabitable, and a group of astronauts are undertaking the task of finding a new home for humanity. This space and time journey is epic, it's thrilling, it's imaginative, thought-provoking, emotional, visually stunning, not to mention the amazing cast. I get the criticisms this movie gets when it comes to the ending, though I don't personally find it that big of a deal. I don't hate the ending. I think it could have been better, but I don't think it's bad. But regardless, even if you do hate the ending, I just don't see how the last 10 minutes of the film can ruin the rest of it and just make the rest of the amazing stuff that happens here not matter. I just don't know. I do not understand the hate this film gets from some people. Aside from what I said about the story and the experience of this, you have absolutely gorgeous cinematography by Hoyte van Hoytema and an amazing score by Hans Zimmer, which is one of my favorite scores of all time. Plus, Matthew McConaughey never fails to make me cry in this movie. You know the scene. For number 4, I am going with another Christopher Nolan film, Inception, of course. What can I even say about this movie at this point that hasn't been said already? I don't think I need to sell anyone on this film, and if somehow you still haven't seen Inception, please let me know how that's even possible and why. It's a mind-bending story. This concept of a dream within a dream is just a part of our pop culture at this point, and people are still debating the ending. Inception is a whole experience, and because of how intricate the story is and how many details there are, it is a very fun film to rewatch because you're going to be picking up on new things every time. I swear I kind of forget how great this film is between the viewings because every time I watch it, I find something new to admire that I haven't noticed before. This is also the oldest film on this list. It came out in summer of 2010, and almost 10 years later, there is absolutely no question of whether or not it holds up. Of course it holds up, and it's going to keep holding up for years to come. This movie is something else. We are in the top 3 now. Are you ready for me to fangirl about Denis Villeneuve again? You knew this was coming. And if you did not know this was coming, then you are probably not subscribed to my channel, which you should definitely do. Please subscribe and hit the bell to turn on notifications so you don't miss any of my future videos where I will find ways to fangirl about Denis Villeneuve over and over again. Anyway, at my number 3 spot, I have Blade Runner 2049. Yes, I know I already talked about it in my top 10 sequels of this decade video, but you know, there was no way I was going to exclude one of my all-time favorites. The sequel to the iconic Blade Runner, something that sounds like it would be impossible to pull off and something that I think nobody asked for, but somehow I am not afraid to say that this is just as good as the original, if not better. It addresses the ideas from Blade Runner and builds on them to expand the philosophy and the world building. It brings back Harrison Ford as Rick Deckard, but he is not just there as a nostalgia item or to just make fans happy. He actually is an important part of the story. He makes sense. It also, of course, introduces us to new compelling characters, and I don't think I can say this enough. This is, yes, one of the most gorgeous films I have ever seen in my entire life. It is stunning. Even though I generally tend to find films that are this long to be kind of unnecessarily long, Blade Runner 2049 completely justifies its runtime of 2 hours and 43 minutes. Somehow, by the time this movie ended, I felt like I could have watched another hour of this. I don't know how this works, but I love this movie. It's a masterpiece. For number 2, I am going with another one of my all-time favorites, Her. Her, which is the most fascinating and beautiful story of a man falling in love with his AI virtual assistant. The science fiction aspect here is very subtle, and I love that the aesthetic of this film feels simultaneously retro and futuristic. It's a film that seems nostalgic, even though it's clearly about the near future. It explores very human ideas of personal connection and loneliness, but it brings in the AI aspect, which is something I would love to see explored more often in films that are this kind of romantic drama. So many artificial intelligence stories out there approach it from a technophobic angle, and I think it is very refreshing to see a film that does not do that and tries something different. I don't know if it's just Joaquin Phoenix being amazing, or if it's the writing, or if it's both, but it really hits you emotionally. It's a beautiful romantic drama that is a very powerful and emotional story. I connect with this film a lot. I love it, and I definitely think it's one of the best. Finally, at number one of my most rewatched films, the best science fiction film of this decade, and something that would easily land in my top 10 of all-time favorites overall, Arrival. Of course. The aliens are here, and we don't know what they want or how to talk to them, but they're not leaving, so they definitely want something. Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner are determined to figure it out. It's about communication, working together, understanding each other, and accepting life as it is. This movie is kind of difficult for me to talk about because I just feel so strongly about it that I kind of devolve into, oh my God, this is so good. You should watch it if you haven't, and if you have, watch it again, and let's watch it together. That's pretty much me talking about Arrival. It's a beautiful story that I really connect with. It is not your typical first contact type of movie. It is pretty unique and unusual. I love the design for the aliens. I love the way they did the language and how all of that relates to time. It's one of my all-time favorite films. It's something that gets better every rewatch for me. I love it more and more. It is a powerful story with a powerful message. This movie is the best. And that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I know there are going to be movies that you guys are going to be like, what? How come you didn't put this one in? Where is Gravity or Planet of the Apes movies or whatever else? I just, these are my movies. Tell me what yours are. I would love to know what your top 10 of the decade is in the comments below. A huge thank you to all of my patrons, especially to those of you who voted in the poll and helped me pick the topic of this video. And I have an extra special thank you, of course, to every patron whose name is on the screen right now. You guys are amazing, and I am grateful for every single one of you. And as always, thank you to everyone who watched this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I hope you are having a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and whatever you're celebrating, I hope you're having a great time and everything is going well for you. I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye.